Okay, well, let's find out where your convictions are and get into your pro picks. Pro Picks is brought to you by ATB Financial. With over $100 billion in assets, ATB Financial is powering possibilities for more than 843,000 financial services clients. ATB Cormark Capital Markets is a leading North American investment firm providing holistic corporate and capital markets advice and full-service financial solutions. Visit atb.com/inthemoney for more information. Okay, I love these because none of them are household names. So you're really, bringing some information that I think, you don't find on like CNBC, BNN, front page. They're not the Meg 7. So we'll talk about what the risk profile is when you're doing stuff like that. But your first one is Alpha Cognition, trades on the NASDAQ, ticker ACOG.
Yes, and that's actually a Canadian company. So I followed them for 4 years, as I often do these companies, meet with them and have calls with them before I ever decide to invest. And what it is, it reminds me of another company I'll tell you about afterwards, a Canadian company that was a huge success. This company has developed a better formulation for an Alzheimer's drug that treats cognitive deficits. So there are 3 generic drugs out there right now that treats cognitive deficits that have a similar mechanism of action. It's an acetylcholine esterase inhibitor. And what that does is acetylcholine helps your brain process thoughts and so on. As you incur deficits, your cognition falls with that. This drug, as well as generic Aricept and galantamine, helps improve that. So your first line of treatment for Alzheimer's is to get an acetylcholine esterase inhibitor treatment.
And you're saying alpha cognition is better?
Yes.
Okay.
So one of the side effects, or a couple of the side effects of the existing generic drugs is that there are gastrointestinal side effects, there's insomnia, and so compliance is not good. So you tend to shuttle through each of those and hoping to find something that is sustainable long-term. And so inevitably, you just give up. What Zunville does, which is the therapy that they did, it's a reformulated version of an acetylcholine that has esterase galantamine that has now clinically and FDA approved proven that it has better bioavailability with much lower side effects.
So why has the stock been under pressure?
Oh, that's the market, because most small cap biotech stocks have been under pressure.
So nothing specific here.
No, it's nothing specific other than, maybe people are uncertain of what the launch might be, but I think it's just a golden opportunity.
We spoke with a healthcare fund manager a couple of episodes ago, and he was pretty bearish on treatments in general for Alzheimer's because it's a really tricky area. You need to kind of treat it before you know you have it in order for it to be effective. And that's kind of a difficult equation. What do you say to that?
The failure rate in Alzheimer's is basically 100% for drugs. If you can go back until aducanumab, which didn't succeed, but Leqembi from Biogen was approved, the first biologic, the first disease-modifying drug for Alzheimer's, you'd have to go back to 2003 for when Namenda was approved. So you're looking at 2 decades of failure, clinical failure. And that's due to a couple of things. First is the bar that the FDA had set was too high. So you had to prove statistically that you achieved efficacy in both cognition and function. Well, which disease has to have 2 dual endpoints to succeed at? So FDA had a eureka moment and went back and said, okay, we're going to change this. So you've had major pharma companies bow out, Glaxo, Pfizer, all of it. They said, we're not blowing billions of dollars anymore in this. It's just unachievable. So FDA changed the rules and said, you need 1 trial and you can prove either or of it. You can use one as a secondary, one as a primary. So the landscape for Alzheimer's is improving. There are over 5 million diagnosed in North America. It is the biggest treatment frontier that's unaddressed right now. You saw how difficult it was for Leqembi to get in there because, again, it's IV, but they have a sub-Q version of it, right? That's going to be approved.
Subcutaneous skin. Yeah, okay.
And so, again, administration will be easier. When Leqembi was approved, there were all these conditions. You had to have an MRI to confirm your diagnosis and all these things. Roche has an Alzheimer's drug that's coming, and it's shuttled with new technology that is able to cross the blood-brain barrier much easier, get greater quantities of drug to the plaque and so on. So that's coming. But you need to get one approval to have another approval, to have another approval. Think of it like HIV, in the 1990s. You had to have Biochem Pharma's 3T. You had AZT, which is toxic. And then you had first a Canadian success story, Biochem Pharma's 3TC or Epivir, partnered with Glaxo. And then you had a series of other companies built. And then eventually you had PrEP from Gilead, right? Combining all these. It's the same thing with Alzheimer's. You need to have one approval to have another to incentivize companies to develop. And there are different mechanisms of action. And there's a host of really small companies out there. Like it as bleak as it is for Alzheimer's right now, it may be one of the greatest opportunities for investor returns looking out at 5 years.
Does this get taken out? Have all these names here, do you think eventually get scooped up? Is that kind of how you play it? Good results and then gets taken out?
So these companies, I'm not thinking in terms of a takeout because I think all the companies at least two of the three companies were here, they're going to have 100% revenue growth every year for the next 5 years.
Is Alpha one of them?
Alpha is one of them.
Okay.
Right? It's going to have, it launched last year, but this year, it's going to be targeting Medicare-covered long-term care facilities, which is an addressable 250 patient market. And to get reimbursement, all the patient has to do is to have failed one of the three treatments, which is
a low bar. Your second one is ClearPoint Neuro.
Yeah.
So I feel like there's a theme. We're targeting the brain.
Yes.
What does ClearPoint do?
So ClearPoint has this revolutionary device that is able to deliver drug deep into the regions of the brain and the spine. It's an interesting story how actually, you never know how you discover great companies.
This is the medical device company.
Yes, that's exactly right. And if you look at the chart, you'll see that it had a giant move, a 200% move, and then right back down. So it was anchored to Unicure.
I was just going to say, it looks exactly like the Unicure chart. Yeah. Okay, so that's why.
Yes. Now, that's an overreaction on ClearPoint because they're partnered. Before I jump there. So this device is very innovative. So how I discovered it was in September of 2016. I was at the Mizuho Neuro conference in Boston, and I was speed dating with a bunch of neuro companies, including Vivek Ramaswamy's Axovant.
Okay.
So I sat down for an hour with him, and
Vivek.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay, let's park that. I want to know what that was like.
Yeah. So I met Voyager, and Voyager was working on a therapy to deliver deep into the putamen region of the brain. So I asked the CEO, well, how do you get the drug there? And so he says, we're partnering with this little company that has a device that's able to get the drug in deep regions. At the time, ClearPoint was unknown, completely under the radar, had revenues of around $6 million, and was trading for around $2. Fast forward 6-7 months, I've had a couple of calls with them. It's Victoria Day. And instead of us getting out of the city, I do 2 calls with the company. My wife was not too happy. And then we did a financing. We did a big financing at $2 with a 5-year 220 strike warrant. 4 years later, the stock was in the 30s. We sold out. And then, of course, the bear market hit back down to $5. Bought again. And what it does, it's partnered. So in addition to selling a neuro device in 100 neuro centers and have executed on 7,000 treatments so far, the real interesting thing for this is that, so its revenues are going to be 35 million for 25, 55 next year for 26, sorry. But really, there is this blue sky opportunity. It is partnered with 60 biopharma companies, gene therapy, and companies like Unicure to deliver therapies in unreachable areas in the brain, right? So drugs that had failed, brain drugs that had failed in the past,
Because
now
it
have a
didn't
second
get to
life.
the right place.
Exactly, because you can't get enough drug. You've got the blood-brain barrier. And so this company has a call option on all these programs without the binary risk. So you take something like neurology. They have 9 partnerships with companies that have 7 indications under fast track review with the FDA. If you get a tiny percent of those 2 million addressable patients, you're looking at $250 million to $500 million in revenues because they'll collect
Right now, it's like forecasted to be 55 million.
Yes.
So it's a small company.
Yes, but that's it's massive blue sky upside. So I'm very bullish on this long term. I hope they don't get acquired.
But a lot of volatility, as we saw.
Yes.
So be prepared.
Yes, and they've been hurt recently because of the FDA's stance on AAV delivered treatments, right?
Quick detour for your Vivek Ramaswamy story.
Yeah.
What was that like? And
so he was the CEO of Axovant, who was
this is before?
Yes, this is September 2016 in Boston.
Okay.
And his Axovant was had bought a repurposed drug from Glaxo for Alzheimer's. And again, he's very charismatic, very intelligent, and we dialogued for about 50 minutes, and it went by in a heartbeat. He had been successful as a hedge fund manager. He was one of the early investors that had figured out. So Gilead had bought a company called Pharmasset in phase 3. So Gilead, had a great phase of growth in HIV. And then even though we had started a new bull market 2009, 10, 11, Gilead was going down. And its market cap was about $25 billion. It took this massive bet, buying this phase 3 company, Pharmasset, paid $12 billion for them. They bet the farm on it. Mm-hmm. Well, that became the drug Sylvani and Harvoni, which cured hepatitis C, right? So Vivek was also he'd figured out that then. So that a big part of his success was getting that. So he had a Wonder Boy sort of reputation when he came. Axovant failed, stock crashed, as all Alzheimer's companies inevitably do.
Yes. But not this one that you put on our radar, Alpha Cognition, hopefully.
Yeah, no, because you see, it's already approved.
Yeah.
And it is, so 15 years ago, there's a little Canadian company I bought, Cipher Pharmaceutical.
Oh, yeah.
They had developed a version of isotretinoin, which is basically Accutane, which is severe acne. And there are 2 generics in the market. And this little company had developed a drug that had better bioavailability, as did Alpha Cognition. Mm-hmm. And they partnered with Dr. Reddy. And they got 25% of revenues. And Dr. Reddy kept the rest. Well, that became a $100 million drug. And Cipher went to $19. Right? Just on that, just tiny amount of leverage that these microcap companies can do. I feel Alpha Cognition is something like that.
Okay. Thank you for that detour. Let's bring it back to your third and final pro pick, NeurAxis.
Yes.
Tell me about this one.
So there is a pediatric indication that results in severe abdominal pain due to IBS. Mm-hmm. And there is an adult version of that called functional abdominal pain, FAP. They developed a device called the IV Stim. And what it is, a device worn over the ear for 5 days, replaced with a new device for another 5 days for 1 month. So 4 devices for 1 month. The clinical data is exceptional for patients that have no relief from the pain, a chronic condition. especially pediatric patients, deemed 8 to 21. And it has
Why does wearing something on your ears help your stomach?
Good question. It's called disorders of the gut brain, DGBI. And what it is, it stimulates the vagus nerve.
Mm-hmm.
And the vagus nerve is what is part of that interaction. And it changes what signals is sent from the gut to the brain. And that changes everything.
I know a few people who could use that.
Yeah.
Okay, so NeurAxis, very small cap.
I can put them in touch with the CEO.
Very small cap.
Yes.
Sub 50 million.
Yes.
So high risk profile.
Much less high risk.
Okay.
Again, I think it's really set up. You know, the thing is, when you enter a new bull cycle, you know, you're not facing the headwinds that you did the last 4 years. And the market will be more receptive to a tailwind. And this company coming into this year has 3 tailwinds.
And you think we're entering a new bull cycle?
Yes.
Sorry,
especially for Biotech. Yeah, no, that's okay.
3?
So one, it got a CPT-1 code. That's the best imaginable reimbursement code a company can get. And you can only get that if you have a best-in-class therapy and then everything else is inadequate. That's the only way you can get a CPT-1. What that means is that hospitals will get seamless reimbursement and doctors will get compensated for providing the treatment. The second thing is that they're getting covered. So before they get the payer coverage, there is a policy paper put out by KOLs treating this ailment that validates and stands by the efficacy of this treatment. So that's important, especially for the payers. And so they're getting reimbursement payers. So they now have reimbursement coverage, very broad, not conditional, from payers like Anthem that now covers 20% of their lives. Now here's a commercial opportunity. Every treatment is $1,200 that they receive. 4 treatments, $4,800, let's say $5,000. Mm-hmm. There are 6 million with functional abdominal pain. 10% is your immediate addressable market of pediatric abdominal pain due to IBS. That's 600,000. 600,000 times 5,000 is a $3 billion addressable market. And that excludes the adult market. We're not even counting the adult market, which obviously is addressable.
All right.
So there are 260 children's hospitals. That's a low-hanging fruit.
These are the kind of stocks where it's like you want them to win for your portfolio, but also just for society. It'd be really
nice. It's virtuous investing. It's virtuous investing. And these are all game changers.
Eden, it has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for joining me.